I've wanted to make a video about the most underrated players in the NFL for some time now, and Bryce Huff was the first name on the list when I thought of the idea. Huff is an undrafted edge rusher out of Memphis and didn't even receive an invite to the NFL Combine. He's been receiving a lot of love lately due to his awesome season so far, so I kinda wish I had made this video earlier, but I figure it's better late than never. So, let's talk about Bryce Huff. First, we'll dive into the numbers, then we'll dive into the film, and we'll discuss why both of them together show why Bryce Huff is a player you need to know. Let's get into it. Bryce Huff is used by the Jets as a DPR, which stands for Designated Pass Rusher. DPRs are mostly used on third downs and obvious pass situations, meaning they'll play about 15 to 25 snaps per game. They're typically guys who win with speed and technique rather than brute force, and they're also usually guys who you don't really want playing on running downs because they don't have the consistent power to set the edge or hold their gap in the run game. We'll discuss Bryce Huff's run D a bit later, but Huff has been dominant in his role as a DPR. In 2022, Bryce Huff had a 25.6% pass rush win rate, which was the first in the league of 125 edge rushers with a minimum of 134 pass rushing snaps. Huff had an 88.0 PFF pass rushing grade, which was 8th best in the league, and a PFF pass rush productivity grade of 12.2, which was 2nd best. He ended 2022 with 36 pressures, 3.5 sacks, and 8 quarterback hits. He's only gotten better in 2023. He has a 21.3% pass rush win rate, which is 8th in the league, a 78.2 pass rush grade, which is 17th, a pass rush productivity grade of 17.1, which is 1st in the NFL, and has 34 pressures in just 6 weeks, which is 4th best, and only 2 pressures off the amount he had the entirety of last season. He has 2.5 sacks, and his 8 quarterback hits and 23 hurries are both tied for 4th in the league. Overall, in 2023, he has a PFF defensive grade of 80.2, ranking him as the 57th highest graded defensive player in the NFL and the 20th highest graded edge rusher. But let's see how he wins in action. In general, Huff beats offensive tackles with a mixture of speed, technique, twitch, and a great pass rush plan. Let's start with his go-to moves, a cross chop and a rip move. On this play, Huff whoops Mike McGlinchey. He'll first do a slight fake to McGlinchey's inside shoulder, trying to get McGlinchey to shift his momentum inside, and then he drives hard off his inside foot, getting both feet off the ground, and uses a cross chop in the air to block McGlinchey's outside arm. He'll try to use a rip move to disengage, but McGlinchey actually does a solid job recovering, so what he does is he gets even lower and uses McGlinchey's 6'8" height against him, allowing him to get under McGlinchey's pads and get him off balance and throw him off of him. Literally as he's falling and throwing McGlinchey with his left hand, he then uses his right hand to trip up Russ and bring him to the ground. On this next play, Huff is facing Jack Driscoll and uses the same move. Like before, he'll start rushing to the inside shoulder of the offensive tackle, then at the last second, he'll use a jab step to change direction to the outside. He gets both feet in the air and comes down with a cross chop at exactly the right time to defeat Driscoll's outside arm. Once he finishes the cross chop, he seamlessly transitions into his rip move and gets right to Jalen Hurts. Unlike many power rushers, Huff wants the offensive line to shoot into him first because he trusts his reaction time, hand quickness, and technique to prevent the offensive lineman from getting into his chest. And that's exactly what he does against Driscoll here. He approaches with a stutter step, and as soon as Driscoll throws his outside arm, Huff angles his body to make it more difficult to hit him in the chest. Then he throws his famous cross chop move, and then transitions seamlessly into a rip yet again. This rep, he doesn't get the sack, but he gets the quarterback pressure, and he gets it to Jalen Hurts' face. And just to ingrain it into you a bit more that he loves the cross chop, let's show another one. Trust me, he does more, but it's important to realize how good he is at first before we take a look at how he switches it up. Here, Huff is in his usual wide 9 alignment, he bursts off the edge and gives a quick stutter step, and then explodes into his cross chop, knocking away the outside hand while also using his own outside hand to pin the offensive lineman's hand away so he can't get it back up and into Huff's chest. But now, let's look at how Huff builds upon his cross chop. Here, Huff is against Jordan Mailata, who has the 13th highest PFF pass blocking grade this year. Mailata is scared of Huff's speed, so he'll set hard to the outside to prevent Huff from beating him to the edge. Huff reads this quickly, plants off his outside foot, knocks away the inside arm of Mailata, and explodes into Hurts. Unfortunately for Huff, there's a ton of traffic here, so he's not able to finish the sack, and Hurts escapes the pocket, but pretty great nonetheless. Here, we have another clip against Jack Driscoll, who Huff has been kicking the crap out of the entire game with his cross chop move. So here he gives him the usual stutter step and raises his arm, but instead of going for the cross, he raises his arm, faking the cross chop, and instead just throws his arm back underneath to perform a rip move, and he beats Driscoll to get the pressure. Here's a rep from earlier against the Eagles where he's playing against Lane Johnson. He'll hit him with a similar fake cross, and then he'll go to his stutter and pace himself, forcing Johnson to throw first. he'll use his incredible bend to get under Johnson's arms and rip up to disengage. Patience is a big part of his pass rushing plan. For example, if you look on the left side, Jermaine Johnson wants to get his hands in first, whereas Huff wants to counter when the offensive line throws his hands. Here, he shows his awesome reaction time and hand usage, just knocking away both arms of the offensive tackle and exploding to the quarterback for the hurry. But Huff can also just win with straight speed. Here, Huff simply beats Jawan Taylor to the edge. He then throws his hands out while he's about to bend to get Taylor to reach. And once Taylor reaches, he drops his shoulder, angles himself to the quarterback so Taylor can't get into his chest, and leaves Taylor to push him in the back and ultimately grab his face mask for the penalty and the somewhat controversial safety. Again, Huff just bursts off the line and simply beats the offensive lineman to his spot. He uses his inside hand to pin Driscoll's outside hand and flushes the quarterback out of the pocket. He unfortunately misses the sack here. Huff's awesome speed also makes him a great looper on stunts because he can quickly beat offensive linemen to their gap. He also uses his hands to get right to the quarterback. But Huff also shows a lot of flashes of traits that typical DPRs don't have. For example, he has a lot of pop in his initial punch. Here, Huff shows an awesome speed to power move to get a great initial push on Mailata. Mailata does a great job anchoring, but Huff counters by doing an awesome job to disengage at the last second for a sack. Huff also shows some power here as well, pushing back the tackle to collapse the pocket just before Jones gets rid of the ball. But truthfully, Huff is not really the type of guy who's going to just bull rush players into oblivion. That's not really his game. His ability to get a great initial push and have some pop in his hands to drive back offensive linemen definitely helps, but he's not the type of player who's going to go straight through the offensive lineman. Instead, he plays with violence, throwing offensive linemen off of him and consistently working his way into the quarterback and keeping his legs driving while using technique and speed to win. But Huff also shows some flashes in the run game as well. Again, he's not going to be a people mover and he may not consistently set the edge, but he's shown some ability to make stops. For example, here Huff shows the ability to hold his gap and then disengage from the offensive lineman immediately to make the run stop. Huff does the same here. He'll win the leverage battle, hold his gap, and then move into the rush lane, disengage, and then end the play. Bryce Huff has been one of my favorite NFL players for a while now, and if you don't already know who he is, now you do. And this is not a name you should forget. Huff is now in the last year of his contract, and he could potentially be a free agent. As a Jets fan, I'm begging them to sign him to an extension. But if you're not a Jets fan, you should be hoping your team signs him in free agency. Anyways, that's going to be it for today. Please leave a like to show some support, let me know what you think down below, and let me know which players you'd like to see a film breakdown on next. Later.